So I bought this new Uncle Strap's chocolate bar strap, but it tastes like rubber. So now, of course, guys, I didn't really try and eat the strap. It's a chocolate bar Uncle Strap's rubber strap. It's a reproduction strap for the strap that originally would have came on this watch when it came from Seiko, when it was produced back in May 1970. May 1970, guys, this watch was cased, and this is a reproduction of the chocolate bar strap, affectionately known as the chocolate bar strap, that Seiko partnered with this 1970, this 55-year-old vintage Seiko diver's watch. Now, guys, I'm over the moon. I'm over the moon with the strap. I love it. I mean, it's not particularly expensive. I think it cost me just over 150 New Zealand dollars landed with the freight. The freight kills a lot of these small value purchases, doesn't it, these days, when you're buying from overseas and you have to pay just as much on the freight as you are on the actual product itself. But sometimes you just got to suck it up to get what you want. And yeah, look, I love this strap. I think it's really good. It's ever so pliable, very, very comfortable. I'm wearing it a tad loose at the moment. It's just a bit of a warm day, and as my wrist warms up, it tends to swell a little bit, so I'm wearing it a bit loose on the wrist right now because it's still nice and cool in the morning. But more than anything, guys, I just wanted to make a quick video, just really talking briefly about my love affair for vintage Seiko divers watches. So this particular case, this is the what's commonly referred to as the turtle case that Seiko have been making for decades now. And this is actually the first model. This is the introduction of the turtle shaped case. Now, I've got modern turtles. I've done videos on a modern turtle that I've got, and I've owned a few modern turtles in the past. Yeah, look, they're comfortable, but there's something about these vintage Seiko divers watches and this particular style of turtle case in particular that I just can't get enough of, guys. I can't tell you how comfortable this watch is. It's considerably more comfortable than the modern turtle. So of course it's not just the comfort that you get with a vintage watch, but you get this really gnarly, beaten up, aged look. And it's crazy, isn't it? You want to go and spend 15-20 grand on some brand new, beautiful Swiss luxury watch, and you have an absolute heart attack if you get the slightest ding or dent on it. And I did that when I bought my Submariner, of course. You know, the first full day of wearing it, I'm out in the grocery market shopping, and I dipped my wrist into the freezer to pull out my frozen chips. And what did I do? Was I caught the side of the freezer door on the lug, on the top right lug, and there's the tiniest little scratch on there now. And it is tiny, guys. Only I can see it, and only I know it's there. But I know it's there. And of course, you don't get that with these vintage watches. They're past the point of caring about the aesthetics. You're now at a point where actually, if anything, you've gone completely the other way. The negative aspects of a beaten up watch are actually a positive. They're a positive when it comes to vintage watches because, yeah, this watch has got history. It's got a life. I mean, look at the scratches on the crystal, on that Hardlex crystal. It's covered in scratches. I could polish those out. I don't want to. The bezel's got loads of little knocks and dings in it all the way around the bezel. I love it. I love the fact that that's the original bezel that's got all the life that the previous owner beat into it. Absolutely amazing. And of course, when you turn these watches over, what's lovely about vintage watches, of course, is often the case back as well. You know, if you can get a case back that isn't covered in horrible marks where somebody's tried to butcher it open to have a look, to thinking they need to change the battery on it when it's actually an automatic watch. This one, I'm very lucky. This one hasn't got any significant case back marks on it. It's got one or two, but the rest of the wear on this case back is purely from being worn. And actually it's been worn so much that you can actually see that over the years, you know, the metal is just, it's just buffed down a little bit. You know, some of the engraving on the back of the case back there is just a tiny bit worn, just a tiny bit worn, and that's from years and years and years of the previous owner just wearing this every single day. There are some marks going across the Seiko logo there. I think that's probably from where it was once upon a time, maybe worn on a NATO strap. That tends to have that effect like that, those parallel lines that go across the case back. But yeah, look, when you can get a really nice vintage watch that hasn't been over polished, you know, somebody hasn't tried to just bring it back to brand new condition every time it's been serviced. When you can get a watch like that that's got some life, it's got some history, it's got some marks, then, you know, you're in luck, guys, and you're in love as well. I love these vintage divers watches, and there's something about Seiko in particular. There's something, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, and maybe I'm showing you what it is right now. Is look at those sexy lines. Look at that beautiful, sexy, asymmetrical case there. Look at that crown. Look at that crown with the 6 grooves on it. It's got lock, of course. It's just got the word lock written on the crown there, rather than the big horrible Prospex logo. Yeah, look, there's something about these vintage divers watches, and there's something about the way Seiko made them back in the 70s, back in the late 60s and throughout the 70s. There's something about the way Seiko made these vintage watches, which you can't buy a watch these days. I think I'm going to finish on that. You can't buy a watch these days. You can't buy any brand new watch that comes anywhere close to the allure and the love and the emotional attachment that you can get when you find a terrific, well looked after, original, unpolished, unbeaten vintage watch.